Hello, good afternoon. It's for me a pleasure to be here. I want to thank my friend Ramon Estruc and the committee for inviting me to stay with you today. I'm going to talk about something that is trying to start bringing some knowledge on why and how all this epidemiological data is showing us that there is a benefit. I think it's important at this level of evolution of our understanding of moderate use of alcohol that we start considering why it's happening. When we can communicate this to everybody, maybe our reasons to recommend this moderate dose of alcohol with the diet will be really heard. You know, cardiovascular disease is the first cause of death in the world. It's in Europe, the first cause of death is in Spain and is in Catalonia, where I come from. And this is important because, as you know, in the Mediterranean area, we are protected against cardiovascular disease because of the Mediterranean diet. And this is also a fact. Therefore, although we have a protection against the disease, still cardiovascular disease is the first cause of death. And this, of course, impacts health policies and attitudes in our country and all Europe. So I don't have to dwell on this slide. It has been presented many times already, and we know that if we go to registers to data mining and we look into PubMed or we go into the American Heart Association guidelines, everybody agree, and we saw Simona's presentation before, that in this range is the benefit. So we cannot really recommend drinking alcohol in high amounts, and this is also very well known. And we have different levels if we look into PubMed as a general data resource, or the American Heart Association that mainly uses their internal data in the USA. But we are around 30 grams per day. That means 2 to 3 beers in men and 20 grams per day in women. So until now, we are in agreement. We saw the presentations, and obviously we should recommend zero intake in pregnant women and teenagers, young children. This teenager name every time goes down, but it's important because of the heavy drinking in teenagers in Europe, in some parts of Europe. Therefore, this is a zero, and maybe there we have a role for alcohol-free beer. Now, these moderate fermented beverages, and I'm putting together beer and wine, have atheroprotective effects. We saw it before. Cardiovascular risk prevention is atherosclerosis protection. But what about cardioprotective effects? It's much less known, and this is what we wanted to investigate. Can we say, upon the basis of what we know, that maybe the moderate intake of beer may have some protection against heart disease, meaning myocardial infarction? So we had previous data in preclinical animal models, as it is the swine, that when we have a myocardial infarction, we have cardiac remodeling, and this repair process of the necrotic area around the scar can have different routes. Sometimes this area gets larger and larger, and the heart enters in failure. So cardiac failure is the most common problem now in our age European population. So this is one route. But we have also understanding that when we have high cholesterol levels, hypercholesterolemia, we have more complicated conditions if we have a heart attack. And we have the situation of aggravated structural remodeling that adversely affects our heart. So in this situation that we had the model, we know the human situation, we wanted to investigate if beer intake affords cardiac protection and improves myocardial scar formation post-MI in the setting of dyslipemia. That is the most common risk factor for myocardial infarction. So this is the study protocol we use. So we treated the animals 10 days. They were from the same breed, so they were sisters. And, brothers, they are male in this case. So they were fed 10 days with a hypercholesterolemic diet that had the composition of saturated fat, cholesterol, and cholic acid. And there were 4 arms. This was like a trial. It was blindly for the investigators that were running the animal part. So one arm had the hypercholesterolemic diet, and the other 3 arms have the hypercholesterolemic diet plus low dose, meaning 12 grams alcohol per day, 25 to 25 grams alcohol per day, and 0, so alcohol-free beer. So in this situation, we induce a myocardial infarction after the 10 days, and you will see afterwards how we do it. So it's a closed chest model. So we go with the balloons, as in the cath lab for humans when a stent is deployed. So we go with the balloon, and we produce an infarct by occluding the LAD, the anterior descending coronary artery, for some time. And as you see here in the slide in blue, and afterwards, we recover the animal. So first, we wanted to see if beer can afford protection during ischemia in this phase. Second, we recover the animals. You will see the data we had in the acute phase, and we follow the animals 21 days with the same regime. So alcohol-free, moderate dose, low dose, and the placebo arm. And we sacrifice them. And here we initiate a wide research program to investigate where beer intake affords cardiac protection in the remodeling phase, post-MI. And we use a system biology approach, investigating functional results, cardiac function and coronary function, histological study to know how the infarct size was modified, if fibrosis and scar was being produced, and infiltration of lipids, molecular studies, and transcriptomic to identify the genes that were affected. And this only if we had beneficial functional effects, because if we didn't, we were not going to proceed with the whole study. So this is what we did. This is the myocardial infarction model. I don't know if you see it. At your left is a normal heart. In your right is a heart that has an infarct. As you see the shape on the scheme that this is a computer modeling of the heart, it's really, the shape is completely different of a normal heart. And I see that the lines of contraction, you don't see, these are parallel lines. After the myocardial infarction, the lines are crossed. And this is the same that happens in humans. So the contraction of the heart is modified because of the myocardial infarction. So in this situation, what we did is, in the ischemic phase, as I showed you before, we investigate the incidence of ventricular fibrillations and mortality during the STEMI phase. And the results were really surprising. For us, the first, we didn't expect such a beneficial effect from 10 days of taking beer, a lager beer, a blonde beer. And you see in red here is the hypercholesterolemic animals. We had a 24% mortality. Of each 4 animals, 1 died in our placebo. And this is the normal in our studies with drugs, with medicines that we investigate for cardiovascular prevention. But we didn't have the same results with the beer-treated animals. As you see here, the incidence of death was none in the beer-treated animals. The red disappears. And in blue, you see the incidence of ventricular fibrillations. Ventricular fibrillation is what kills people when there is a heart attack. The ventricle starts doing these strange movements and people die. So ventricular fibrillations were high. We can recover them because you recover them with instrumentation. In the hypercholesterolemic branch is the HC diagram, histogram. You see that it's high, but it's lower with the low dose and moderate dose of beer. And then we investigated the non-alcoholic beer. And as you see, the effect was not so important. And this was the first and the only difference we have been able to see between alcohol-free and non-alcohol containing beer. So we don't know why, and we should investigate that, provide we have funds for it. But this is the only big difference. It was in the ventricular function at this time of ischemia. Now, if we normalize the number of ventricular fibrillation per animal, because animals have more than one, it's like humans, we can have more than one episode of ventricular fibrillation. If we normalize, we saw that also the alcohol-free beer had a significant reduction over the control. So there was a benefit, not as much as in the alcohol-containing beer. So we proceed then to we could conclude from this phase that beer ameliorates myocardial adaptation in the setting of acute MI. Now we follow and we look into the scar size. This is 21 days after when we were studying remodeling. This is the typical image of the infarct, the scar size. You see there very nicely surrounding by the line. This is a typical image of a myocardial infarction. So when we quantified that, we saw that it was a significant reduction in scar size in the 3 groups, but it was more significant in the alcohol-containing beer than in the non-alcohol-containing beer. But it was marginally significant in the non-alcohol beer. So this is probably related to the ventricular fibrillation in the acute phase, and we have to investigate this further. Now, what we wanted to see is, well, we sent this paper to a very important journal in cardiology, and the editor-in-chief asked us, well, this is very interesting, but is the structure of the heart modified? Because you know that alcohol abuse is associated to hypertrophy and changes in the myocardium, so it was a concern. So we went back to our hearts, and we analyzed if the size of the ventricle had been changed by these 31 days of alcohol intake, and there was no change at all. You see the weights of the heart, 229, 227, 233, 222. It was nothing. And the most important thing is that the scar size that you see also there, maybe you see, this is in black, there. So this is from the area where the occlusion of the LAD was happening to the apex of the heart. This is the heart going down. So you see here the cuts, the 3 cuts. What we saw is that the reduction of scar size was happening without modification of the left ventricular architecture. Therefore, it was a functional effect, and we had to understand why. And this is what we did. And in this journal, Basic Research in Cardiology, what we have done is to publish this part. We understand now how beer is affecting the myocardiocyte. All things that you see in yellow, we have investigated. For the sake of time, I didn't bring the results, I didn't put in the presentation the data for every single protein in this cascade. But the final point is that apoptosis, that is the programmed cell death that we have in the cells of our body, that is induced by ischemia or hypoxia, is counteracted in the animals that were having the beer intake. And we believe that this is, in this part of the study, is associated to the non-alcoholic contents of the beer. And we'll see why. Only because apoptosis is so important in this cascade that leads to apoptosis, I show you the data for active caspase 3, that is the factor of apoptosis in the cells. And as you see that, we had a beneficial effect in blue in the animals taking beer, and also in non-alcoholic beer. You see HC is our placebo arm, and the blue is really reduced because the blue is the ischemic zone where we expect changes. And you see that all the animals with beer, included the non-alcohol beer or the alcohol-free beer, have a beneficial effect in reducing active caspase. And also sirtuin, that is an important antioxidant and a molecule that has been claimed has different effects in the body. Now, this phase allows us to conclude that the beer activates cardioprotective kinases and reduces apoptosis execution. Because apoptosis execution is reduced, we believe this is the reason of the reduction in infarct size in the presence of similar level of damage in the 4 arms of the study. Now, we like to understand why. And I think that as we progress, I was speaking before outside, that eventually we will have, like with wines, we will have with beers, a classification, denomination of origin, and really we will advance, if the field allows it, to differentiate beers. And I think that we saw yesterday how many components can have an effect on this morning in the first presentation, can have an effect that probably when you drink beer may be different. Therefore, we wanted to have markers that are telling us, without having to intervene the heart, as in the preclinical model, markers in the circulation that can tell us what's the situation of a person taking beer. So we did a program of transcriptomic, and we are now going ahead with this. I'll show you a few data. So we took the tissue, healthy tissue and tissue with infarct, and we have applied are an array of 35,000 genes, and we have applied software Partec Genomic Suite. Is a way of handling so many genes, and we have applied software ingenuity pathway analysis to select networks. I mean, when you do this, you have a significant amount of data that you have to put together, and you have to use bioinformatics. So the network analysis have told us that, you see, these are the three groups of animals. So genes are different. In blue, we have the moderate BR intake. In green, the light BR, the low dose BR intake. And in red, the placebo arm. So the groups of genes that are associated to them are different. We don't know which ones are they. So here is an example of associated network functions that we are trying to identify. And what you see here with the score, here, this is in this area that is cell death, cell morphology, cellular compromise, is the area that is more associated to the number of genes that we found modified. So we have a lead. We have to follow that and understand, and it matches the apoptosis and programmed cell death that we found in our functional analysis. So the transcriptomic and the functional assay give us similar results that promote that we are further studying what's happening. Next, we have now the hypothesis that beer is affecting ROA signaling, and ROA is controlling cell function, many different cell functions, and probably through this ROA signaling is where we can find effects. So we are pursuing studies in at this level. ROA signaling regulates NO. This morning it was said that moderate intake of beer reduces hypertension. Hypertension is regulated by NO, bioavailability. And we see that but through ROA, beer can regulate NO bioavailability. So again, it matches. So we have to pursue our investigations. Now, finish with the myocardium. As I say, I cannot show all the data we have. But we have moved in the second phase into systemic vasculoprotective effects. If we have the myocardium that is very well, what happened to the coronary arteries that irrigate that myocardium? And this is a study, similar design as previously, and what we have intended to analyze is endothelial function, and because endothelial function can be measured in individuals without having to intervene. So this is what we are now going to measure in our human study. And at the level of the coronaries, oxidative DNA damage and NO activation, because we know that NO is involved. So to do that, we use a similar model. We went into the LAD. You see here a heart, and this is the LAD. So we have to put a flow probe to measure the diameter of this coronary artery and how it changes in volume with a pressure transducer. And this is the data. You see in yellow all the BR-treated animals, and in blue, our placebo. Upon delivery of different concentrations of acetylcholine that produce vasodilatation in presence of the normal endothelium, what we have is dilatation that is highly significantly different from the dilatation that happens in the placebo arm. Therefore, not only the myocardium is protected, but also the function of the coronary arteries that can dilate more easily in the presence of the SEM agonist. The same is for the calcium ionophore, another molecule that produces calcium changes and dilatation. And finally, there is no effect for a donor of NO. So if the effect is through NO, if we give NO, we don't have to find an effect. And indeed, we did not. As you see here is SNP that is a donor of NO. Well, you saw that here. The same, the four are the same. So we know how it works now. We know the mechanism. And eventually, because we thought it was NO dependent, and this NO for you maybe is nothing, but we in the cardiovascular and in physiology, we speak about NO all the time. So here you see that NO was induced in all the animals having BR, the animal groups, I mean. And the mechanism of NO is through AKT and is induced in all animals. And this is the proposed mechanism. So we have induction of AKT. AKT activates the arginine to NO production, and NO is released, producing vasodilatation. And here is what we are measuring when we have this system. And to finalize, what happened to DNA? You know, DNA is what is the key for every function. Our DNA tells us what we are. with epigenetics on top. But indeed, this DNA can be oxidized. And we thought, well, maybe what is happening is that we have less oxidation in this endothelial monolayer. And here you have it. We tested for oxidation in brown, you see it in brown, in the 4 groups. And brown is more evident in the placebo group, as you see here. This is the placebo, brown in the endothelium of this coronary artery. This is alcohol-free beer, low-dose beer, moderate-dose beer. So the amount is much lower. So we have less DNA damage. That implies that the function of this endothelium is improved. Therefore, I want to finish with these take-home messages. To our surprise, I have to say, we had been investigating many drugs to be used in the cardiovascular system, we found that light to moderate regular beer intake with and without alcohol during 31 days exert cardioprotection, overcoming the detrimental effects associated with dyslipidemia in the ischemic myocardium. And that the antioxidant properties of beer rather than alcohol in itself may protect against hyperlipidemia-induced coronary endothelial dysfunction by favorably counteracting vascular oxidative damage and activating the eNOS pathway. With this, I want to finish, and I want to thank the people in my group in Barcelona who have been contributing with the different technologies. This is sophisticated technology, I must say, but my group is very expert in this type of projects. I want to thank you, the Fundación Cerveza y Salud, that were giving us a grant to run these experiments and have been instrumental for us to do it. And with this, I want to thank you for your attention.